taking care of Florida. He's got 3 centers. Then there is Bishop Fulham. He was Sedevacantis bishop, and then he's not Sedevacantis anymore. So he's got some people there. Then the Father Morel now is got back to Father Pfeiffer recently. There is Father Ringrose in Washington. In Washington, we got one of our biggest centers. It's an independent priest, Father Ringrose. And he's got a parish of 400 or 500 in Vienna, which is a suburb of Washington. So like here, like in your situation, people don't see the difference because it's the same priest and nothing has changed. It's in the other centers that there is a big, big difficulties. And it's with Father Ortiz in Washington. And Father Ortiz helped us out a little bit for Canada. Canada, we have Father Giroir is in Langley, near Seattle. He started a chapel there, Father Giroir. And the story of Father Giroir is interesting. He complained to Father Wegener, the Superior District of Canada. He says, the society is not fighting the Novus Ordo anymore. What's going on? And Father Wegener told him, yeah, we are not fighting the Novus Ordo anymore. That's right. We got rebranded. That is, we went to see the 5th biggest company in the Netherlands, and we asked them to check us out and check our branding. And then they told us, and after we paid them thousands of euros, tens of thousands of euros maybe, they told us, stop fighting Vatican II and the new Mass. It's dying anyways. Don't fight it. Just say how beautiful your Mass is and how beautiful your doctrine is. And so Father Wegener says, no, I didn't sign for that. We have to fight the Novus Ordo. So he started this thing in the center. You have Father Gruner here, and he's sending us a seminarian very soon. Other places of Canada, we have to take care by priests from outside, coming from the US, saying the Mass in Toronto, in Montreal, and in Quebec. Half of the parishioners in Quebec, at the school there, Levis, are with the resistance, and there are families with lots of children. And so the main base is the Kentucky, which is the center of the USA. But we have groups. We got 70 faithful in New Jersey, 40 in Connecticut, some in Long Island. I don't remember exactly. We got 60 in Denver, 17 Post Falls here. We got a group in Seattle. There is a group in St. Mary's, Kansas, which is very hard for us because it is the citadel of the SSPX. So, but because the liberal priest gave a lecture there, it grew from 30 to 60. So it's increasing. But what's terrible for us is that there are many groups, but most of them are small groups. So we are obliged to spread. We are obliged to be like grasshoppers, or like kangaroos, or like frogs in my capacity. So we are hopping from place to place. So sometimes it's tiring. But last night I had a good sleep, I had good hours of sleep, and now I'm fresh. So by the grace of God we recover. But Father Pfeiffer, Father Hugo, and some others are constantly flying. We are constantly, I've got a pile of airline tickets. We are always flying. And when I raise funds, I tell the faithful, thank you very much for helping the airlines, because half of the money we raise is for the airlines. That's crazy. In Mexico, we have the resistance is also powerful. There are 4 priests. Father Raphael, that's an interesting story. He was a monk in the monastery of Ardi of Guadalupe in New Mexico. And he says, he told his boss, Father Cyprian, Father, I think Bishop Fele is a liberal. And Father Cyprian, no, he's not. No, yes, he is. So Father Cyprian says, here is a plane ticket. You fly over to Switzerland, talk to Bishop Fele, and see, he's not a liberal. So he flew, and he talked 2 hours with Bishop Fele. And then he came back and says, no, Father Cyprian, I talked to Bishop Philip from the horse mouth. He doesn't want to fight. He is a liberal. He hasn't got his head straight. So Father Cyprian didn't know what to do. He did nothing. But he called Bishop Galarreta. He says, what do I do with this priest? He says, kick him out, throw him away. And so he got thrown out. Thrown out without any trial, without any... just thrown out. Here's a door, use it. Just like Bishop Williamson. Bishop Williamson was told, here is a door, use it. And so Bishop Williamson now is in a flat in London, and he kind of likes it, that's what's surprising. So Bishop Williamson does his own laundry, he does his own cooking, and he's got a P.O. box, and he goes and picks up his mail there, and he's got his computer, he writes his LSN comments. So he's got a very, very simple life for a bishop, because they just threw him out. Father Morgan didn't say, I'm sorry, I'm obliged to. No, he says, out. With polite words, but he didn't excuse himself, he didn't put it on himself. He just, his lordship told me, I was just thrown out. But these are beautiful stories, because we have to stand for the same truth as we taught you before. And so it's the occasion to see the mettle of those good priests. Like Father Shuko also was very brave. And then there is Father Trincardo. Father Trincardo, when Bishop Philip visited, says, you are lying to us, you are deceiving us. He told him in his face. He told him all his problems in his face. He talked to Bishop Philip, knowing that he would be thrown out. And sure enough, he was thrown out. And then there is Father Ruiz. Father Ruiz has a parish in Mexico proper. And Father Ruiz also says, no, I can't take it anymore. And so he started another parish of the resistance in Mexico. And then there is another Father Grosso, I think. And that's a fourth Mexican priest. There are 4 priests in Mexico. Because Mexico belongs to Our Lady, basically, Our Lady of Guadalupe. So resistance has to be strong there. But surprisingly, resistance is also very strong in Brazil. Where, like in Father Raphael started a monastery here, but in Brazil you have already 2 already set up monasteries. So the Benedictines of Don Thomas Aquinas was another priest with him, and he's going to have 2 ordinations very soon. So there will be 4 priests of Don Thomas Aquinas. And there's also the monastery of the Family of Our Lady. They wear the white habit, white and blue. It's called the Family of Our Lady. And it's a convent of men. And they're a little bit further north. So you get near Rio, you have got Don Thomas Aquinas. And further north, you have the convent of Don Jair. And he's got several other priests. There is another priest on the coast. There are other priests. There is a French priest there, Father Faure. Father Faure is interesting. He's the oldest SSPX priest. So he's the oldest member of the society. And he was at the general chapter. He told us the level of the chapter of this year was pretty bad. And it's hopeless. It's not going to change. The society is going liberal. It's not going to come back. Father Faure is in those places. There are other priests, I don't know exactly who they are, but roughly in South America you got 10 priests. In Europe you got 10 to 15 priests. The resistance was spectacular in England. In England, just like 40 years ago, the resistance was strong in France because of Archbishop Lefebvre. You may say in England, it's strong maybe because of Bishop Williamson. And so the faithful told Father Morgan, what's going on? Why is Bishop Philip saying that the new Mass is legitimately promulgated? Why does he say Vatican II illuminates the light of the Church? Why is he adopting the new code of canon law? And so they went straight to Father Morgan and everything. Father Morgan says, no problem, everything is nice. Bishop Philip didn't say it, or he's retracting it and everything. And the faithful says, no way. There is no retractation of the statement of Bishop Philip. So we have to proceed. And so they started a chapel in London. You got England, which is a bit like that. So there is a chapel now in London. There is one in Kent, because there is a group of faithful there in Kent. And there is also a chapel of the Resistance in Glasgow, north of England. In Ireland, there are two priests, Father Buffet, and Father Buffet has four chapels. And also there is Father Kramer. But Father Kramer is a little bit of a hermit, he's studying and everything, but he comes out sometimes and he takes part in the events. There was a big event in London where we had as many people as Bishop Village, just a few miles from there. The two events happened at the same time. And there the faithful asked Bishop Village, both here and in Ireland and in France, asking, "My Lord, you must retract your errors." And he said, "No, I've already retracted. I withdrew the text." No, withdrawing is not the same thing as retracted. What you said must be retracted. So 3 times, and this is what happened this summer, 3 times the faithful asked Bishop Philip, "We don't want to secede. You can put everything back into order if you retract your errors." And so Bishop Philip had people who stood up to him very bravely. Because if you are a little faithful, there was one woman in Ireland, and a woman like you, not very young, but very brave. And she stood and she told Bishop Philip, "You said errors, you have to retract your errors." And Father Morgan was the superior of district of this place. "You sit down. And he silenced her. But she stood. And then just a few days ago, when Bishop Philip was in France at the Université d'été, was a forum, of discussions and lectures, a faithful told him, "You must retract. You must, withdraw your errors. Otherwise, the crisis is going to keep on going." And same thing, Bishop Philip says, "I retract if you want." So a very lukewarm answer. Because he wants to stick to his errors. And the council is not that bad. That is, there are no heresies in the council. The council triggers errors later on. But the text of the council can be understood in the light of tradition. It can be purified, understood in the light of tradition. That's still in his mind. And also he also has on his mind to be recognized by the Novus Ordo, even if the Novus Ordo is not converted. That's the big problem. And the other third problem is the networks of formation and information. Like when Pope Francis went to Brazil, he went there and he made a very scandalous remark back in the plane about the gay. If a priest is gay and if he loves Jesus, who am I to judge? Now, that phrase was taken off in the account of the visit of Pope Francis in Brazil because the official SSPX doesn't want you to know how bad things are in Rome. That they put a gay statue of St. Michael in the gardens of the Vatican. So they won't tell you what happened and what's the problem with that statue of St. Michael where they put in fact Lucifer on top of St. Michael. And Lucifer points his lance towards the earth. So the crazy things happening, and also the girls in bikinis. You had girls in bikinis during the World Youth Day. You had a rock and roll way of the cross. And then the discourses of the Pope were communist discourse. And then the Eucharistic abuses, where the hosts were put in disposable plastic cups and then given to everybody, just like candies and everything. And so lots of scandals, graver than before. There was, for instance, this altar with the 2 horns, an altar with 2 horns, but that was too much for Providence, and so it got flooded with mud. They couldn't use that place, so they had to go back to the beach. But Copacabana in Brazil is the most sinful place on earth. One of the most sinful place on earth. It's full of gays. It's full of pornography, and the women are on that beach. They don't wear even they don't cover even their breasts. And Copacabana is a place where it's loaded with prostitution. And the Pope did not condemn the place. He did not condemn the sins that are happening in these places. He made also very frightening statements in which he validates the annulments of marriages. He said, most of people today don't marry validly. Well, why don't you train them? He excuses all these thousands after thousands of marriage, so-called annulments, which is in fact divorces, novus ordo divorces. That's also very grave. And then also in his discourse, he refers to us as Pelagian. He says we are heretics. That is, we rely on old recipes. We put our trust in old recipes that are passé, that are outdated, and I don't want these things. So he calls us Pelagians, heretics basically. And he started also to crack down on those who have signed a deal with Rome, the Franciscan of the Immaculate. He tells them, if you want to say the Novus Ordo Mass, you must ask permission. So he's tightening the bolts against tradition. But the channels of information of the SSPX show you only a half of these things. They want the faithful to believe that he's just as bad as Benedict XVI. Because if he's shown as he is, if the facts are shown as they are, then it's impossible to have a deal with Rome. That's what worries us. That's the third thing that worries us. And the fourth thing that needs to be done, that we ask Bishop Fele to rescind the acts of the General Chapter, the errors of the General Chapter, to rescind them. So it's because of that we have to proceed. So recently in Europe, a new priest has joined his father, Arnold Trauner. He's got also an interesting story to tell. He's telling us in Germany they don't call themselves Society of St. Pius X anymore. They call themselves Pious Brotherhood, Pious Fraternity. So they dropped saint and they dropped priestly, because in France and in Germany we call ourselves the Priestly Society of St. Pius X. But it's very important that we keep those things. And he says, also he tells us that the priests there are openly preaching family planning. The priest there told his confreres, he was preaching the priest retreat, it is a sin for a priest to allow the faithful to have more than 5 children. It's a sin. Not only the priest is allowed to allow family planning, but it's a sin if the priest allows people to have 5 children. And it's in a country, a very rich country, Germany. And that's what the priest is telling to his other fellow priests. So they are always praising Pope Francis in Germany, or in Father Feichel to me in Post Falls. They are praising, they are putting his image everywhere, and they say he's a great Pope. He's very Franciscan, he's very holy and everything. And so this is what Father Trauner told us. Every month, we have priests joining the resistance. And so we hope it's going, well, we know it's going to continue like that. And in Europe, there is 2 convents of nuns. There's one convent of nuns in Brazil here. Father Joe tells me he's got tons of girls wanting to become spouses of Jesus Christ. So he has to open a seminary and he has to open a convent for girls because they want to become nuns and nobody can blame them. So you're going to have convent here. You have one here already there. They call themselves the Slaves of Mary. And nuns here, probably they will be like society nuns. And in Germany you have the Carmelites, 6 Carmelites, and 6 Benedictines. Benedictine women, nuns, and the Mother Prioress is giving headaches to Father Schmidberger, who is the liberal superior of Germany, who was turned liberal. He was good before, but now he's liberal. And because she takes her phone and she calls all the priests of Germany, or German-speaking priests. She's in touch with all of them, and she arranges meetings of priests to give them the facts, to give them the information, and to steer them into action. It's typical in the history of the church. When men fail, God rises a holy woman who is very strong, like Mother Simula in France. All the other nuns getting wrong, her brother is getting it wrong, and he's in the same house as her. And she's very old, and she says, "You're wrong, you're betraying Archbishop Lefebvre." And she's not backing down, she's very strong. And so we see these isolated cases of great strength, great courage. And so there is a resistance in Europe, especially in England and Ireland and in Germany. There is one Italian priest from the town, a friend of mine. He was thrown out a long time ago, and his job was to uncover the heresies of the New Rome. They wanted to stop to do this, and then they threw him out. So he's also resistant. And there are lots of websites, lots of faithful who are organizing themselves on the internet. So they have websites. Now in English, you can check out casinfo.com. And in England there is the Recusant. And then there's Father Pfeiffer's website with the In this sign. In this sign you shall conquer. And there is in St. Mary's Resistance in Kansas. Also, it's the funniest website, St. Mary's Resistance. And then you got websites also in South America. In South America, you are also 4 priests there. They are resistance, but they can't stand Bishop Williamson. And so they are always attacking Bishop Williamson. So I don't count them with us. And some priests, unfortunately, start the resistance, but they become sedevacantists. And they are not also with us. I'm sorry, I cannot collaborate with sedevacantists. Because our position remains the same. The Pope, even if he's drunk, even if he's lost his head, he remains the Pope. We need the papacy. How can we talk to the Novus Ordo people if we don't believe that the Pope is the Pope? And how is Russia going to be consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary if there is no Pope? Plenty of other problems. And so some priests turn to sedevacantism, but there are not that many. But the fact is, the papacy is getting worse and worse and worse. And so many faithful are tempted to lose the trust that the papacy will turn around miraculously and be reestablished by our Lord. And so they turn to sedevacantism, but that's not my cup of tea. And then there is, last but not least, there is Asia, with now 4 of 5 priests. And here in India, you see Father Pankras and Father Varan. And in Philippines, it's myself and Father Suelo. So I'm able to come here once in a while because Father Suelo is manning the stations in the Philippines. So we have a group in Manila, 40 or so people in Manila. There is a little group also in Chennai, near Manila. And then there is, we have a group in Iloilo, 20 people in Iloilo. In Cebu, we have 7 families in Cebu. When Bishop Williamson came, there was 50 people. but I think we are less than that. But I found a village south of Cebu, 4 families, and the Novus Ordo didn't marry them. They never got married, but they want to get married. They want to do what is right. And so I have 4 marriages to convalidate over there. And there are 3 other families plus other laymen in Cebu. On the island of Bohol, we have taken over the chapel of Dagohoy. So there are 40 faithful there, 30, 40 faithful in Dagohoy. Those are old-timers. And all of them, the entire group, want resistance. And then in Leyte, there is a group in Ormoc. It's a new group. Most of them come from the Novus Ordo. They went straight from the Novus Ordo to the resistance because the 2 Filipinas, they are very organized, and they have set up a little chapel for us. So we're going to start to give them the Mass once in a while on Sunday. There is a group in Hindang, halfway down to Maasin. But it's very small, it's struggling. So last time they were only 3 or 5. Right now the group strength is 5 or 6. It's very, very small. When there is Maasin and Santa Cruz, and there you have 100 faithful. We are in touch with some of the so-God people. Sometimes they show up. So overall in Leyte, that's the stronghold of the Philippines. Leyte, it's 150 faithful there. And recently we added also a tiny island there, very beautiful island, very high volcano. There was an eruption 50 years ago that killed 5,000 people. It's a very beautiful island, very high volcano. And we have 30 people there. Last time Father Suelo said the Mass, there was 30 people there. And we have some calls from Mindanao. We know that these people in Zamboanga are with us, but Father Suelo and I, we are too overstretched. So we don't know yet what to do. 2 possible priests may join us. They are like the Father Noro now. They are listening to us. They come and visit us. We are in touch with them. It's Father Tim Pfeiffer and Father Alejandro Hora. I'm on my knees before our Blessed Mother so that she may grant us those priests. That will make a real big difference for us in the Philippines. Father Joe is always telling me that I should go back to France. But because France is the most disappointing place in the resistance. That is, we go and visit the Capuchins and the Dominicans and many other priests, and they all say, we agree with you, yes, 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 but they do nothing. They are paralyzed. They agree in their minds, but they don't know what to do. Whereas in the US, the priest says, or in Australia, in Brisbane, the priest says, well, there are good things in Vatican II. Or, those words, Bishop Fillet, well, they are true words. Just ask Bishop Fillet, he will give you the correct interpretation of those words. You put your own interpretation. You don't like the phrase, the new Mass is legitimately obligative. But that's your own interpretation. The correct interpretation of this phrase, ask it from Bishop Fillet himself. And that's the way the American priests are talking. So, in America, the situation of the priests is pretty bad. That is, they are gone. Liberal and almost modernist. And Father Pfeiffer visited a group there, and then those priests were in CBs. They are not wearing the cassock. They spend most of the week in lay clothes because when they need to go and say the Mass and hear confession, then they put the cassock on. But the rules, they are being thrown away. There is a loss of the spirit, as I was talking to you in the sermon, the loss of the fire, the loss of the generosity in the priestly life. And that's very grave. That means they are plunging. We won't be able to retrieve those priests. And also in the US, it was like in India, the women are very modest, and now they are losing their modesty. So they come to church with very modestly, or they wear trousers and everything. That was unheard of in the United States. It was not like that in the past, and that's new. And the priests are told by their superiors, don't crack down on immodesty. Their bosses are telling them there is a new policy now. We are not cracking down on immodesty. So the American girls, because it's very westernized over there, the American girls are losing the sense of their own femininity. So that's also a sign of that a big slide is taking place in the United States. And because there is a new team governing the US, the Angelus, the websites also are putting a blind eye to the evils of the Novus Ordo, very much so, as a consequence of this rebranding. And then, so lately, all these centers, and here, south of Manila, we are opening a house. So a lady, it's like the story of Joseph Raj. A lady has a property of 3.5 hectares. It's pretty big, 3.5 hectares. And she used to farm 50,000 chicken and everything. And she has called us to open our priory there. And then I'm going to train 3 seminarians. I've got 3 seminarians. I don't think Father Pancras can send his seminarian to me because of the paperwork. I'll see what we can do. So if the Indian comes, that would be 4 for Asia. And but this year it will be pre-seminary for 2 seminarians. And the other one, I will continue his theology with him because he has done already half of his seminary training. He's a Carmelite religious. So he's wearing the habit of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. So here we'll have our priory there, and it's a big place. So I will preach a retreat in September there, a 5 days retreat there in September. And then we also have the possibility to get the locals to Mass. So our estimate will be 40 to 50 faithful there. So there will be 2 hubs basically here, a stronghold here, and another stronghold here. Now Cebu can become also very strong, and then there also you got a plump here, and you go by boats from island to island. So yesterday or 2 days ago, one ferry boat that I was using from Iloilo to Cebu, that thing sunk. It ran into another ship and it sunk, and 20 people died. The second time, 2 years ago, the same ferry also sunk. It was overloaded and it sunk. So once in a while the ferries are sinking, but otherwise they are very safe. And I love to travel by ferry. It's better than the Indian bus, because you can sleep more easily, and the breeze is very cool. It's not so noisy. But anyways, that's the charm of going around in the Philippines. So we do have, a remnant of the remnant. I don't say it's very big, It's 150 at the most in Leyte, at the most. Roughly, it's not far from the truth. There, it's once Batangas is set up, I think it will add up to 100 faithful here, and there it's 20, 30, and 20, 30 there, 30 there. So you got another 100, and then with the scattered Philippines are more or less 400 faithful, I would say. More or less. I don't think I'm exaggerating all that much. Because when we have the fiestas and everything in Marsin, it goes up easily beyond 100 faithful. Because I gave 88 communions during Holy Week. For Easter, I gave 88 communions. So that means there is a serious crowd here. And there is a man called Alexis Sanchez, and then the Father Couture and the other priest says, he's a crook, he's a liar, he's a thief and everything. But now he's not a liar, he's not a crook anymore. He went to see Bishop Fele in Germany, Father Fugger and Nelly. And they told him, yeah, we take you in our seminary, no problem, but you just do one thing for us. You tell the people of Marcin not to welcome Father Chazal. So they used to say, they told the Australian faithful, don't follow Father Chazal because he's with Alexis Sanchez, who is a thief. And now the man is not a thief anymore because it really pains Bishop Pelé to have lost Marcin. It really hurts them. That's why they are fighting us very strongly, because their kingdom has shrunk in Asia. And also, they lost most of their priests, they lost them from the Philippines. They lost me and Father Suelo from the Priory of Manila. And they lost Father Valan and Father Ortiz from the Priory of Iloilo. And then they lost Father Pfeiffer from the Priory of Davao. And they may lose 2 more priests. So there was 12 priests in the Philippines, and now 5 of them joined the resistance and 7 are remaining. So they are sending another priest. So it's very hard for them to compete with us, because the Filipinos, like the Indians, have brains. And they stood for the truth. They tried to counterattack there, but the main man, Lloyd, who is an oil engineer working abroad, is a strong man at the chapel. He says, no, I don't want no liberalism. And so he says, no, I don't want those new liberal priests. You have the mass with Father Chazal. And he was on the feast of the fiesta. They didn't know I was coming. And at the last minute, I showed up. So you see, already is taking care of us. And some of our centers are growing. But what's happening is that we get new calls. These 2 places are new calls. New places calling us. So we are, even if I have Father Suelo with me, I am overstretched. So during the weekdays, I give the classes in the seminary. I will give the classes in the seminary, and during the weekends, I'll catch a plane to Cebu or to Iloilo or to Tacloban to cover these areas. We need my assistance. So roughly, we give to these people mass once a month or twice a month, depending on how big they are. And then, on top of that, we have Korea. Korea, we resisted from day 1. So we got 40 faithful in Korea. And Japan, we are left with only 1 family, the Mori family. But there's 1 new faithful who is coming, the milk driver, has shown interest in tradition. So it's from the Novice Ordo to tradition. And also there is a possible conversion of a Buddhist family. Last time, they attended catechism, they attended the mass, and they asked me to give them Christian names. So I gave them a Christian name. So we think, we are not forcing them, but they are interested to come. They want more. They are very interested, and so it leads. They will probably convert. Once this is done, we will have 2 families in Osaka, or south of Kyoto. It's a very beautiful part of Japan. It's called Yamato. It's the historical heart of Japan. Kyoto is the number 1 tourist place in Japan. It's a very beautiful place. And so they are wonderful people, but there are only a few. So I go and see them every other month or once a month during weekdays. And then in Malaysia, we are also down to only 1 family, the family of Roy Rogers. But last time Father Suelo came, again, he recruited from the Novice Ordo, and there was 12 people at the Mass. And then in Singapore, there is a whole clan, it's the Yo clan, and they are 15 to 20. So when Bishop Williamson came, they were 20. But normally, we see 15 people when we go there. And Father Valan might get there, to see them also on the weekdays. So those are we have all the crumbs. So the crumbs around the Philippines, that's, I would say, 80 people, I would say. So 480 people, Philippines and the other East Asian crumbs. and there are 200 faithful in Australia. So I saw 40, 45, 50 in Brisbane, but in Brisbane there is also Father Hartley. He's got 25 faithful, and he said he wants to join the resistance. So Brisbane would have a good head start. But the other big center in Australia is Tynong, and there I had 40 people at the Mass, and then I saw 8 people in Melbourne. So around 50 people in the Melbourne area. And then in Sydney you have 2 groups, so one of 30 in Sydney proper, and another group of 25, 2 hours north of Sydney. So Sydney is 50, around 50 as well. And then there is Streaky Bay. It's an interesting place. They are farmers, and they raise sheep. Very beautiful place, very wild, open space by the ocean. A very beautiful place. Streaky Bay, it's called. And they are 30. And then in Adelaide there are 10 people, and in north of Brisbane, it's a beautiful place, only 5 people around Cairns. 5. So it's number-wise I saw 200 faithful. But Perth, there are people in Perth, and there are people in New Zealand. But we have not yet followed up about this yet. Perth and New Zealand. So the Bishop Williamson is going to visit them early in December, and at the end of his trip I place a visit of Bishop Williamson to you. I spent several days here in Bangalore, or whatever other place is ready for his visit. So it's a tragedy, we are very sorry to have been obliged to do that. But it's not my own personal ideas. It's something that has happened everywhere in the world. This resistance. It's not just a few of us who went bonkers and everything. And also there is a resistance within the XSPX. That is, there are priests who fully agree with us, but they don't know what to do. And some of them will join us later on, but they are not with us yet. But we cannot say that a priest like Father Trauner was in the official SSPX for 1 year, or more than a year, since the beginning of the crisis. So the official SSPX is a mixed bag, because the top establishment now is sliding. So they are not all dead, they are not all bad. We cannot say that they are all bad. But when they say the new Mass, Father Delarocque, for instance, says, we can't tell the Novus Ordo to abandon the new Mass, so they will have to have the traditional Mass, but in French, with the altar facing the people. They say, we will have to have a hybrid Mass. That's a new theory. Whereas this is not the way you convert people, because you are going towards the new Novus Ordo, you are conceding to them. Whereas in the eyes of God, it has to be an entire conversion. If it's only done halfway, it's not going to work. So you got those liberal priests everywhere now. All of a sudden, we were worried in the past, but now it's in the open that there is a new policy which is taking place, unfortunately, in the SSPA. So we have to do what we have to do, but that implies lots of sufferings for priests and nuns and lay people. Like in Brisbane, one of our faithful, the priest said, "I'm not hearing your confession," and he slammed the door of the confessional to his face. And people are denied the sacraments. People are persecuted because there are places where we cannot go very often, and people are thirsty for the sacraments. It's not their fault if they see the liberalism. It's not their fault. They're asking for explanation, and the only answer they get is denial of sacraments or expulsion. In the case of Father Raphael. But that's the adventure of the gospel. That's what our Lord told us, that we will have pressure. If they have persecuted me, I am your master, and the disciple is not above the master. If they persecute me, they will persecute you.
So down the line, the truth always ends up to be persecuted. And it's a repeat of the days, of the early days of Archbishop Lefebvre, 40 years ago, where we had to restart in the garage, we had to restart out of nothing. We had to restart with no books. I mean, Father Valan and I, we were piling books and everything, nice library in Palayam Kotai, and here we've lost all our books. After the seminary, I had plenty of books. I donated my books to my priories. But now I'm thrown out. So I don't have any books. I only have my Summa to study. And hardly any other books. And we have to rebuild everything, pensing. And also the most tiring thing is that we have to restart the work of the seminaries. Otherwise there is no future for us. If we don't train priests, there is no future for us. And it's very tiring. It's not easy at all. But at the same time, God gives us lots of joys, lots of funny moments. The Filipinos are very funny. They are always on time when it's time to eat, when it's time to have a fiesta. They are always on time, and they are very funny. For instance, Rolly of Camiguin is very funny. And what's your phone number? Well, my phone number is this. I'm Father. This is my resistance number. I only use this for resistance. And Julie Cordova is also quite funny. And then the Filipinos, they never get angry, and so they distribute leaflets. And one of the leaflets was Father Kramer's statement at the I don't have it here. Father Kramer from Ireland, this statement saying that the Novus Ordo Mass is not legitimately promulgated because not only it's illegitimate, but it cannot be promulgated because the oath of fidelity of the Pope says that the Pope is not allowed to create a new rite. It's not allowed by the oath that the Pope takes when he's crowned, at least Paul VI. And also, the Council of Trent says you cannot have a new rite. This rite you just attended cannot be any different in the Latin Church. It's not allowed to have another rite. And Quo Primum as well, the document of St. Pius V, and canon law and all that. So, Father Kramer says the new Mass is not even promulgated. So the Filipinos, they say, oh, that's nice, and so they make Xerox and then they distribute it to the parish of Our Lady of Victory Church. And then the priest, Father Fortin, was so angry that the next Sunday he took the paper, he showed the faithful, and he tore the paper at the beginning of his sermon. He was very angry. Don't distribute, those papers, that are against us, and blah 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 blah. But the paper was just saying the Novus Ordo Mass is not promulgated, and Bishop Vele cannot say that it is legitimately promulgated. And so the other Filipinos, who said, "What's going on? I didn't know that it was this paper." And then they are curious, and then they read the paper and says, "Yes, that's right." And so they get even more angry, and so there are interesting moments. But everywhere we see a call. Everywhere there is a call. Everywhere you have people willing to listen to us. So the situation of the people are different. So there are people who are still attending the XSPS masses. We have no choice because we cannot go and give them the sacraments. There's only a few of us. But what surprises me is that I've never worked so hard in my life, but my health is good. My health has never been so good. Like the story of Father Cummins. Father Cummins was an old priest in Australia. He was a Redemptorist, and he had a neck problem. His neck going this way. And so when he was a young Redemptorist, they didn't know, should we ordain him or not? He's all crippled. He can't do nothing. He cannot preach. He cannot give retreats. He cannot do this and that. But he was very holy, so they ordained him. And when the crisis of the church started, at the same time, some of his faithful would say, why don't you go and see a chiropractor? Because if you are, they can straighten you up. So they straightened up his neck. And then he started to be in good health. But then he could not follow the new mass and everything. So he was thrown out of the Redemptorist. So he started to do what we are doing today, like a kangaroo going from place to place. And the Australian told me he would never deny a single call. So if one person was calling him in Perth or in Darwin, he would jump in a bus and ride for 20 hours, say the mass for that one person, and then go back. That was Father Cummins. And a funny story was, he was in one place, so he was talking people out of the Novus Ordo. The Novus Ordo priest went there and everything, come on you people, how can you follow this old bag of bones? It's just an old bag of bones. And so Father Cummins had this funny Irish accent, and he says, this old, maybe I'm a bag of bones, but maybe this old bag of bones might be around before you. It might be, when you'll be dead, this bag of bones might still be around. And sure enough, 2 years later, this young Novus Ordo priest was dead. And the bag of bones was still around, Father Cummins. And so Father Cummins held the line. He held the flame of tradition for 15 years. For 15 years, he was alone in Australia. And he went from place to place. And he gave the Mass and he gave the sacraments. Not every Sunday, yes, but he gave the sacraments often enough to these Australian people until the SSPX came. And so this is what we are doing right now. We want the flame of tradition to survive. It's an operation survival of the operation survival. So it's a lot of work, but very strangely, we never go to the hospital, and we are in a good health. We are in good shape. And sometimes I have no sleep for 3-4 nights in a row, and I sleep well one night. I get a solid block of 8 hours. After that, I'm all fresh. I can start again. But we do get tired sometimes. But our health is strong. So we don't have any more health coverage because we don't need it. Just like the Capuchins, the Franciscan monks, they don't have health insurance. So I asked my brother, what do you do if you get sick and everything? So he answers, we don't get sick. God doesn't send us to the hospital. And there are 30 of them. So that's enough to prove it. That is, if you put your insurance in God, God gives you the best health coverage that there is. That is, you don't fall sick in the first place. You just drop dead at the age of 90. That's all. Like the Carmelites do. But you just don't go to the hospital. And so my brother tells me we never go to the hospital. So we don't need a health coverage. So it's an adventure. So it's much less boring than before. But it's sad to see people being misled. And it's sad to see all this wastage of energy and properties, the generosity of our faithful, because the assets of the SSPX are in the billions of dollars. If you add all the assets of the society, it's several billions of dollars. And all this generosity now seems to be put into great jeopardy. But our religion is not founded on buildings, even though we are happy to have buildings, don't get me wrong. But it does not depend on that. It's the message. We cannot change the message. All right. So I hope I wasn't too long. Any questions? Any questions we'd like to ask? Yes?
What happens if case like consecrate
we've done, last year I did a consecration of Russia myself with my faithful in Hong Kong. So we can consider Russia with that. Yeah, but already request the Pope. Well, we tried. I mean, we do it once in a while. Before the crisis, Bishop Philip did consider Russia in Fatima with the other 3 bishops, and there was a special pilgrimage for that. So it helps, but it doesn't carry the day. It is very clear she wants the Pope to do it. And that's one of the reasons that we should not be sedevacantist, because Already says the Pope has to do it. If there is no Pope, then why is Our Lady asking the Pope to do it? But for the consecration of Russia, it's going to be done the hard way, I think, because Russia and the US are on the collision point. Yesterday I was asking one of the boys, isn't there a state of war on the internet between Russia and the US? And he said yes. All these countries are at war on the internet. They are thieving each other, they are sending viruses and everything, they are fighting already. And then you see in the newspapers, it's festering in Syria and everything. So it will be done the hard way, I would say. Yeah. Other question? I didn't tell you how many seminarians we have. So I got 3 boys in Manila, 3 or more, I don't know. Father Pancras, he's got 1 maybe. Father Joe says he's got 20. Father Cardoso was pictured with 4 seminarians with a house in the background. So Father Cardoso is already busy with his 4 seminarians. Don Thomas Aquinas is training a few priests. Don Jair is training a few priests. So we have roughly 35 seminarians of the resistance. 35. And we don't know what's going to come from Germany and France and other places in the future. So it's not so bad. It's not such a bad start. It's a little bit like the beginnings of Arjou Lefebvre, where he started with around roughly that number in Ecole, in the first years. That's where we start. And the seminary of Father Pfeiffer is called a matchbox seminary. That is, it's very cheap. While the society is building a seminary that's going to cost them $50 million in Virginia, Father Pfeiffer has revamped all buildings for less than $100,000. So it's a very cheap. It's called a matchbox seminary, and seminarians will raise pigs and cattle, and they will do a lot of work to feed themselves, because our budget is very small. We have small budgets, but everything pays for itself. It's amazing. They were wondering, how does Father Chazal move around? The other thing is that we are not flying expensive airlines anymore. Korean Airlines, even I'm not flying Emirates anymore. I can't afford it. So we fly AirAsia, Tiger Airways, Cebu Pacific, those commercial cheapos, So all you pay is the flight, If you are hungry, you gotta buy the food in the plane. So low-cost airlines. So I'm discovering the joys of low-cost airlines. But it pays for itself. And then you are generous. So the faithful of the resistance really support us. So I don't need to ask much. You come forward with your generosity, and we don't have any worries. Well, Father Pfeiffer has worries because he spends. So 2 months ago when I called him, he says, do you have $20,000? Yeah. Not this time. Because he made this meeting in Washington for the anniversary of Bishop Williamson. So there was 12 priests and 300 faithful. So they made this meeting of the priests. It was very important. It was worth the expense. And so he also organized the London conference in London. that also doesn't come cheap, because to bring Father Kramer and the others, he needs to pay and everything. So, but we see the hand of providence, including on the 15th of August, Korea was so hot, much hotter than India, and Our Lady sent us rain. So it rained during the Mass. During the Mass, there was rain. As the Mass was over for the procession, the clouds went away, and then everything was cool, and we had a cool procession. And then it got back hot again at after the day after. But on the very moment of the procession, we had the coolest of all weathers. So we are getting those smiles of providence, those wonderful occasions, where, for instance, Father Suelo meets Father Tim, perchance, things are meshed together in a very providential way. But that's the adventure that we do. I think I got no regrets. I've got no regrets whatsoever of having started to do that. And also the good news in India is that because of the resistance, Father Couture is very active. So he attends to Arankandihei, he attends to Tuticorin, he attends to the nuns, the reparation nuns. So they are obliged, at least some of them are obliged to work hard and to give the sacraments away. And if it can be done, as long as Jesus Christ is preached, I can only rejoice. That's what's in. They do it out of envy, they do it because they want to block us, but as long as Jesus Christ is preached, I rejoice, and I shall rejoice, says St. Paul. Because in the end, it's the truth who will prevail. Last year they said, you're going to fizzle out. Yeah, it's going to come to nothing. Father Nelly told me. I love Father Nelly very much. He was my spiritual director. He told me, it's going to fizzle out. You are starting that thing with Father Joe. Father Joe is a clown. You are a clown. It's going to fizzle out. Can they say the same this year? Can they say that we are fizzling out? When more and more faithful are attaching themselves to the resistance. No, it's not fizzling out. It's difficult, yes. But it's not fizzling out. And if it is of God, it's going to go ever stronger. Just like you see in the Acts of the Apostles. You let them be, let them be. If they are not of God, they will fizzle out, says Gamaliel. He says, because remember you had this other sect, it tells the Pharisees, you had this other sect and it ended up in bloodshed. The Romans came and they massacred them all. And we don't hear about them anymore. So let them be. Let them be, and if they are not true, they will fizzle out. So, other places we are so small we cannot crumble, because I tell them we cannot crumble because we are crumbs. If you are already a crumb, if you crumble, that's what you are. You are a crumb, and so we pick up the crumbs here and there. And here, in India, you got the smallest crumb, which is Roland Fernandez, which is the only faithful of the resistance in Delhi. He's in Delhi. And so I talked to him on the phone, Father, when are you coming? But, it's poor Roland, he's not going to have a priest anytime soon. Because even before the crisis, it was very hard to go to Delhi. We went to say the Mass for Roland, and then there was only a few people, and these few people were Novice Ordo, and we didn't make the point to them. Yes? Yes, what you have to watch out is the new doctrine, that is the fact that they are not telling you the truth about Pope Francis, for instance, and also they are put in their blueprint in the general chapter that they are not waiting for the conversion of Rome. That is, we are waiting for the new Mass to be forbidden and Vatican II to be thrown to the flames. Once this happens, it means the Pope has converted. But now they say, what do you mean by conversion? And then you have traces of liberalism spreading now everywhere in the world, like the priest says, well, so what? We will have to have a hybrid Mass, a mixture between traditional Mass and the Episcopal Mass. Or Vatican II is not that bad, or we cannot condemn Vatican II as a whole. Vatican II is not altogether. You have to distinguish the good phrase and the bad phrase in Vatican II. But there is this new speech, and especially what's worrying is the new priests, the young priests are very liberal. They are different from the old school priests trained by Archbishop Lefebvre. They are much more liberal. And this is what's coming out of the seminaries today. That's very worrisome. And also, Bishop Fellet has not retracted his errors. St. Augustine is a father of the church. He's a big doctor and father of the church. In theology, we study St. Augustine through St. Thomas Aquinas. But St. Augustine wrote a book with 90 quotes of his. So this is a quote of mine. And that's wrong. I retract it. And then there's another quote of mine, and that's wrong, and I retract it. So what Bishop Fellet needs to do is to say, when I said the new Mass was legitimately promulgated, that was false. I was wrong. I retract it. When I said we will follow especially the new code, that was wrong and very misleading, and I retract it. But instead of doing that, instead of retracting, he is following the new code. How do I know? In my decree of expulsion, they are using the new code. They put the new code ahead of the old code. So they are using as the main source of their legislation the new Novus Ordo Code of Canon Law. So this is not for what I have joined the seminary. I'm sorry. So you don't see that they are retracing their steps back to the original position of Archbishop Lefebvre. When Archbishop Lefebvre died, he told us, you wait for the conversion of Rome. And he was very clear. He says, I was wrong to talk to them. I went too far in my talks to them. And now we are not talking to them anymore until they convert, because they are too smart. And if we are recognized by them, it means that we are under them. We are under their authority, and they will destroy us. So you have two aspects, the doctrinal aspect, where you see the doctrinal slide, and you have the practical aspect. In practice, they are going down. They are sliding down, because they want to collaborate with the Novus Ordo. Just recently, Father Pfeiffer to me in postcards, they put the image of Pope Francis everywhere, and they are praising Pope Francis, like the liberal Latin Mass people, who are afraid of saying anything bad against Pope Francis. They are afraid. You will check on their websites, they are scared of saying anything bad to Bishop Rifan. Bishop Rifan, who used to be a traditional priest in campus, he betrayed Archbishop Lefebvre. Now he says the new Mass once in a while. And then he organized a special group at the World Youth Day. While some girls are in bikinis and all kind of liturgical abuses are taking place, he has a little corner for the traditional Mass. But you can't do that. You can't go with these people. You cannot mix with this World Youth Day, because it's a new religion, it's a religion of the Antichrist, which is coming. They are really going from bad to worse. The Pope is going to canonize Paul VI. Even Paul VI is going to get canonized. He's going to be beatified now, Paul VI, but that means that he's going to be canonized later on. He's going to canonize John 23rd and John Paul II next year now. He's pushed the date a bit further to next year. They are canonizing themselves, almost. And then they're going to have Assisi 4, which is, they are really establishing the religion of the Antichrist. which is a merging of all religions in one world religion. So, as far as we are concerned, the situation is very clear with the New Rome, with the Novus Ordo. We have to have this principle, nullam partem. We recognize their authority, but we are away from them. We cannot follow what they say and what they do, because it's too dangerous. And they are very smart. They know how to get us. Any other questions? About the Philippines or no? Okay. So let's see.
எவ்வளவு கஷ்டமானது பார்க்குறீங்க. கொஞ்சம் பேர் தான் அங்கங்கே இருக்காங்க. பாதெல்லாம் வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் பிரயாணம் பண்ணி கஷ்டப்பட்டு பூசை கொடுக்குறது, தெய்வத்துக்கு அனுமானங்கள்லாம் பண்ணிட்டு அது வந்து நமக்கு ஒரு பாடத்தை கற்றுக்கிட்டே இருக்கிறோம். என்ன பாடம்னு புரிஞ்சுன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். பூசைக்கு நேரத்தில் தான் வர மாட்டேங்குது. அது முக்கியம். ஏன் இன்னைக்கு பரவாயில்ல, இன்னைக்கு கொஞ்சம் ரிலாக்ஸாக இருக்குன்னு சொல்லலாம். ஏன் அப்படின்னா நான் இருந்தேன், பாதம் இருந்தாங்க, பூசை முடிஞ்ச பிறகு ஒன்றும் கிடையாது. கான்ஃபரன்ஸ் தான் வந்து அப்புறம் நான் சாப்பிட்றேன். ஆனால் மற்ற நாட்களில் வந்து நான் வந்து பெங்களூர் போனோம், அதில் கோவா போனோம். அந்த காம்பினேஷன் இருக்கிறப்போ பஸ்ஸோ ஃப்ளைட்டோ மிஸ் பண்ணாமல் இருக்கணும் அப்படின்னாக்கா பூசை வந்து சரியான நேரத்தில் தொடங்கப்படணும், குறிப்பிட்ட நேரத்தில் முடிக்கப்படணும். நான் பசங்களை பஸ்ஸில் கொடுக்குறோம் இருந்த பொழுதிலோ அது இப்போ அவசியமாக இருக்கும். அதே போல் ப்ரிப்பரேஷன் சில இன்னைக்கு இந்த கான்ஃபரன்ஸே நடத்தணும் அப்படின்னாக்க இன்னைக்கு சில ஏற்பாடுகள் பண்ணணும். அப்போ வந்து எல்லாரும் அது ஒத்துழைக்கணும். அது ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்காக நடந்துடும் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறாங்க. கஷ்டப்பட்டு நடக்குது, அது ஈஸியாக நடக்குது, கஷ்டப்பட்டு தான் நடக்குது. அதனால் நீங்கள் வந்து எனக்கோ இல்லை மற்றவங்க எதிராகவோ ஃபோன் பண்ணி கேட்டுக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா எது செய்ய வேண்டியிருக்கான்னு கேட்டுக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா ஒரு சின்ன ஒரு காரியம் உங்களுக்கு சொல்லி நீங்கள் செஞ்சுருங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி கொஞ்சம் அப்படி வேலையை டிஸ்ட்ரிபியூட் பண்ணும்போது கொஞ்சம் ஈஸியாக பண்ண முடியும். அதனால் அந்த வகையில் வந்து நீங்கள் உழைக்கணும். ஃபாதர் இப்போ ரீசெண்டாக வந்து சொன்னாங்கன்னா ஆஸ்திரேலியாவில் ஒருத்தர் இருக்காங்க, பில் பாயிண்டிங் ஒருத்தருக்கு. அவர் வந்து ஃபாதருடைய ஆஸ்திரேலியா விசிட் பண்ண ஒரு இடத்துக்கு இல்லை, எத்தனை இடங்களுக்கு போனாலும் அந்த விசிட்டை பூரா ஆர்கனைஸ் பண்ணாலும் அவர் எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஃபோன் பண்ணி அந்த டைமு, பூசைக்கு வேண்டிய இடங்கள் இதெல்லாத்தையும் ஆர்கனைஸ் பண்ணி அரேஞ்ச் பண்ணுறாரு. அதே போல் நம்ம எல்லாருமே இதில் வந்து ஒத்துழைக்கணும். என்ன செய்யப்படணுமோ அதுக்கு வந்து நம்மளால் முடிஞ்ச அந்த ஒத்துழைப்பு நம்ம முன்கூட்டியே வந்து தயார் பண்ண முடியாது. அதே போல் ஆல்க சர்வீஸ் முன்னாடி இருந்த காய்ச்சல் வரதில்லை, இருந்தாலும் பார்த்தே பேசுனேன். அவங்க ஏதோ ஒரு காரணத்துக்காக அவங்க பூஜைக்கு போகிறாங்க. சரி, அதை தப்பு இல்லை, ஒரு கொஞ்சம் விஷயம் புரியுது, பட் அவங்க நல்லா புரியும்போது அவங்க சொல்லுவாங்க. அந்த வகையில் இப்போ பூசைக்கு உதவி செய்யுங்கிறது இப்போ நமக்கு குறிப்பிட்டாலும் இருக்கீங்க. நீங்கள் வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஏர்லியராகவே வாங்க, கரெக்டாக 8 மணிக்கு வரீங்க, கொஞ்சம் ஏர்லியராக வாங்க. அதே போல் எல்லா விஷயத்துலையுமே கொஞ்சம் நல்லது தாராள மனசு வந்து ஒரு டைம் எனர்ஜியை வந்து பெங்களூரில் இப்போ இருக்கிற ஒரு 4 பேர் ஸ்ட்ராங், 5 பேர் ஸ்ட்ராங்காக இருந்தாங்க. டாக்டர் அபிலாஷன் வந்து அவருடைய தம்பி, அவருடைய தங்கச்சி 3 பேர். அப்புறம் டாக்டர் திவாகர், அவர் வந்து மோகன் வந்து இவங்கெல்லாம் ஆக்டிவாக இருக்காங்க, ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ராங்காக இருக்காங்க. மற்றவங்கெல்லாம் வந்து அவங்க ஃபேமிலியில் உள்ளவங்க பூசிக்கு வருவாங்க, பட் அவங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப விஷயங்கள் புரியலை. அந்த லெவலுக்கு கோவா ஃபாதர் வந்து வெள்ளிக்கிழமை கோவா பாம்பே போயிட்டு ஏற்கனவே அவங்க போய் இடங்களுக்கு போய் அவங்க பார்த்து சந்திச்சுட்டு அதனால் பொதுவாக சொல்லக்கூடிய விஷயங்கள் என்னன்னா எதை நினச்சிருந்து டிஸ்கரேஜ் ஆகிடக்கூடாது. நம்ம கொஞ்சம் பேர் தானே, நமக்கு கஷ்டங்கள் இருக்குன்னு சொல்லி டிஸ்கரேஜ் ஆகக்கூடாது. அந்த ஸ்பிரிட் ஆஃப் சாக்ரிஃபைஸ், அந்த பரித்தியாகத்தோடு செய்கிறது ஆண்டவருக்காக உங்களுடைய எதிர்காலம், உங்களுடைய குழந்தைகளுடைய எதிர்காலம் உள்ளதான். நீங்கள் நவீன பூஜைக்கு அனுப்புனா அங்கே போனாக்க அந்த இதே போச்சு, விசுவாசமே வந்து போயிடும். பார்ப்பீங்க நவீன பூஜை இங்கே விசுவாசங்களும் இருக்காது, அந்த பைபிளில் அந்த வார்த்தை இல்லை, இன்னும் ப்ராக்டிஸ்லேயே இருக்காது. கொடுக்கிறேன்னு சொல்லி இந்த ஆத்மங்களுடைய ரட்சணையும் இதை குறித்து வந்து நீங்கள் பரித்தியாகம் செய்து சில கஷ்டங்களை எல்லாம் ஒப்புக்கொண்டு ஏற்றுக்கொண்டு தைரியமாக இருங்க, ஸ்ட்ராங்காக
maybe it's a sign. Already in last lesson talks about the apostle of the end of times. And so by this Christ has been thrown to the wind. We've been thrown out and we are thrown to the wind and we become itinerant missionaries. And maybe that's what God wants in the end, is that more an apostolic spirit. So keep the apostolic flame, be outgoing, talk about tradition to other people, even if they are not listening. I mean, you're going to fail many times, but if you don't throw your net, you are not going to catch fishes. So talk about this Mass here to people around you, bring them to the church, because we were sleeping, we were too much asleep. Now I see in those centers are doing well when you have people who are very outgoing and apostolic. Like, in Osaka, there is one family left, but Mrs. Mori, she goes and talks to everybody. So she got that one family there, and then the milkman there, They, in Kamigin, there is Rolly. Rolly talks to everybody. And so he covers a group. And so we need to rely very much on you, on your apostolic flame. So you have the grace to talk to the others. It's given to you at the sacrament of confirmation. So use this grace. So it's a time where Providence is forcing us to wake up. We cannot simply be happy about going to Mass on Sunday and go back home and do nothing else. We have to have pity on the people outside, the people who go to the Assembly of God, These people should not have gone there. They should have left the Novus Ordo and go to tradition. And we have to be apostolic. By the force of things, by the circumstances of this year and last year, we are obliged to be more apostolic. To behave more apostolically, that is not to have many assets, not to have our own cars, our fat bank accounts and everything. We are obliged to go from place to place, and it's possible. I think it's an indication of the will of God. That God wants to raise an army of apostles, not priests, but also lay people and nuns. Because some of the nuns, surprisingly, are very active. Some of the ladies in France, because the men have failed, they are running the websites and they are causing lots of waves in France. And so France could one day join the resistance all of a sudden because of their work, because they are relaying the information very actively. Just a couple of ladies, young ladies. One of them is married and she's got children, and she runs the website with the Immaculate, avec l'Immaculate. And that thing allows the truth to be spread everywhere. So have this flame, because also it's our great joy. God really rewards us interiorly for being generous to Him. All right. Yes, and also tonight there's a meeting of the younger families and younger people. So people around 30 and down, there is a meeting for you where? At the Priory. So you come upstairs, you can flock over there at the Priory. So we have a meeting for you to explain you the crusade of families, and to explain to you that the only solution is the Catholic family. Also, we must use this crisis as an occasion for us to wake up, because we were, I think we were lethargic. We were asleep. You know, our Lord says, look at Judas. Judas is not sleeping. Judas is busy. The devil doesn't sleep. The enemies, you know, the Mormons there, the other false churches, they are busy. We must not be lukewarm. It's unforgivable, and I think that's one of the reasons why God allowed this crisis to happen, because there's too much lukewarmness, and God doesn't accept it. He wants our hearts, and He reads our hearts. You cannot say I love you when you don't love Him inside. You cannot play monkey with Him. So He wants us to be apostolic, because we have to receive this treasure. Somebody brought it to us, and it's not ours. It's not my treasure. My treasure is God's treasure, and we have to have the desire to give it away to others. Otherwise, we are lukewarm. We are in trouble. Okay, I give you my blessing, I guess, as a conclusion. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, Deus Creavos et Maniat Semper. Amen. Thank you very much. Let's read.